I've been driving long haul for over 20 years, and if there's one thing I've learned, it's that the road can mess with your mind. You see everything from the mundane to the downright bizarre. Cars veering off the highway with no one inside, figures standing too still in the dark, shadows that shift in ways that don't seem natural. I've seen it all, but there was one night, one run, that changed everything. It started like any other run. A load from a warehouse in Montana heading straight to Nebraska. A route I've driven countless times, with little more than the hum of the engine and the endless stretch of pavement to keep me company. It was late, maybe around 1 a.m., when I hit the flatlands of the highway. The miles rolled on like they always did, with nothing but dark skies and a few scattered road signs breaking up the emptiness. You get used to the isolation after a while. It's easy to slip into a rhythm. Drive, drink coffee, stay awake, repeat. The monotony, while sometimes overwhelming, had a certain peace to it. That night, though, something felt different. I couldn't put my finger on it, but as I passed mile marker after mile marker, the unease started to creep in. I brushed it off. Maybe it was the silence of the road or the way the headlights cut through the inky blackness. Still, the feeling gnawed at me. Around mile 120, I saw it. A car on the shoulder, its hazard lights blinking weakly in the dark. At first, I thought nothing of it. Broken down car, someone needing help. But when I glanced over, I noticed something strange. The driver's side door was open, but there was no one inside. The interior light flickered on and off, casting odd shadows that didn't quite make sense. It was unsettling, like something wasn't right. I thought about pulling over, offering help, but something stopped me. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I shouldn't get involved. Instead, I kept driving, my foot heavy on the gas as I passed by the car. My mind raced, trying to rationalize what I had just seen. 5 miles later, the unease turned into full-blown discomfort. I saw him, standing at the side of the road just outside the reach of my headlights. At first, I thought it was a trick of my tired eyes, but as I got closer, I saw him clearly. A man, though calling him that didn't quite feel right. His posture was wrong. His head tilted too far to the side, as though it was barely hanging on. His body swayed in a way that didn't match the natural flow of a person standing still. He wore ragged clothes, torn and dirty, as if he'd been out there for days, maybe weeks. I couldn't look away. Something about him felt wrong, unnaturally wrong. And I had to fight the urge to speed up and drive past as quickly as I could. But just as I passed him, his head twisted. Not his body, just his head. It turned to follow me, impossibly far, with a sickening crack. My mind screamed at me to keep going, to ignore it, but I couldn't shake the image of that twisted head. Then the CB crackled to life. "Help me, please." It wasn't a shout or even a clear voice. It was a whisper, distorted by static, but I could hear the desperation in it. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. I checked my channels, but there was nothing. No one else was broadcasting. My truck was the only one on the road. I called out into the void, my voice shaking with unease. "Who's there?" The response came as nothing but static. Then, through the hiss of the radio, I could hear it. A faint, labored breathing. It was human, but distorted. Like something was suffocating, struggling to breathe. I turned the radio off, my hands shaking. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Was someone else out there? Was this some kind of prank? Or was it something else entirely? I pushed the thought to the back of my mind and kept driving, hoping that the highway would offer some clarity. A few miles later, I saw headlights in my mirror. I figured it was another trucker, maybe someone I could share the road with, and for a brief moment, a sense of relief washed over me. But as the lights got closer, something felt off. The lights were too high, too large. I glanced in my rearview mirror and my stomach dropped. The truck behind me wasn't a truck. It was a towering, skeletal figure with glowing eyes. My heart raced as I sped up, but no matter how fast I went, it stayed right behind me. The air grew cold, my breath fogging the windshield. Every lane change, every speed increase, it mirrored my moves. It wouldn't let me escape. I couldn't outrun it. My headlights flickered, and when they came back on, I was parked at a gas station, an hour gone with no memory. Wet footprints, too large to be mine, led from my truck. I drove until dawn, but the dread lingered. Weeks later, I found claw marks on my trailer door, and in the dirt the words, "You saw me." Then, last night I saw it in a bathroom mirror. A figure standing at an impossible angle. I ran, but wherever I go, it follows, watching. I don't think I'll make it home. I've been driving the night shift for over 20 years. It's quiet, less traffic, and the dark has never really bothered me. But there are some nights like this, where I wish I'd chosen a different life. It started around 2:30 a.m. The highway was empty, stretching out in long black ribbons beneath my rig's headlights. The CB was quiet, just static humming in the background. I had another 6 hours before I could pull over and get some rest, but I was making good time. Then, I noticed the headlights behind me. At first, I didn't think anything of it, just another driver burning the midnight oil, but something felt off. The car was too close, sticking to my trailer like it was tethered to me. No matter how fast or slow I went, the headlights matched my speed. I tapped my brakes to send a message. Back off. The car didn't react. I tried switching lanes. A cold feeling crept into my gut. It wasn't normal. It wasn't right. My hands tightened on the wheel as I tried to shake the unease crawling up my spine. Maybe it was just some kid messing around. Maybe someone drunk, unaware of how close they were tailgating me. Then my CB crackled. "He's right behind you." The voice was raspy, distorted by the static. I glanced at my CB radio, my pulse hammering in my ears. I hadn't heard another trucker in hours. My knuckles went white on the steering wheel. "Who is this?" I asked. Nothing but static. I checked my mirrors. The car's headlights were still there, unblinking, unwavering. The darkness outside my cab suddenly felt deeper, thicker. My truck was the only real thing in an abyss of black. Then the car's headlights blinked out, gone. No slow fade, no turn-off. The road behind me was pitch black. I exhaled, a shaky laugh escaping my lips. Maybe they turned off, maybe they pulled over. I didn't care. I just wanted to put as much distance between me and that freak as possible. But then, a new set of headlights flared to life ahead of me, appearing out of nowhere on the empty road. Same bright beams, same eerie stillness. Like the car had teleported. I slammed on the brakes. My tires screeched, my trailer swaying violently behind me. My heart hammered as the car sat motionless in the middle of the road, blocking my path. A low, terrible hum filled the air like metal scraping against bone. The car's door opened. A figure stepped out, silhouetted against the headlights. Its body was wrong. Too tall, limbs too long, its joints bending in ways they shouldn't. The head tilted at an unnatural angle as it took a step forward. I threw the truck into reverse. My trailer groaned as I backed up fast, my breath coming in sharp gasps. The figure kept walking, its movements jerky, inhuman. Then the radio crackled again. "Don't stop, whatever you do, don't let it catch up." I didn't need to be told twice. I slammed the truck back into drive and swerved off the road, my tires kicking up gravel as I tore down an abandoned side road. My headlights barely cut through the suffocating dark, but I didn't dare slow down. My pulse pounded in my skull. I glanced at my mirrors. The car was behind me again. No engine sound, no headlights this time. Just a vague shifting shadow, keeping pace with my 18-wheeler like it was floating. My vision blurred as panic tightened its grip on my chest. I pushed my truck harder, my RPM screaming. The shadow moved closer. Then, a hand, if you could call it that, pressed against my window. Long fingers, pale and gnarled, spread out across the glass. The hand twitched, tapping the window in slow, deliberate beats. My stomach clenched. My skin turned to ice. The hand dragged downward, leaving behind a streak of something dark, something thick. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Then the whisper came, right in my ear. "Let me in." I yanked the wheel, nearly tipping the truck as I veered back onto the main highway. The shadow peeled away, slipping into the blackness as if it had never been there. My headlights cut through the fog, illuminating an empty road ahead. The car was gone. I didn't stop. I didn't check my mirrors. I just drove, foot heavy on the gas, not caring about the speed limit or the weight of my haul. The sky began to lighten at the edges, dawn creeping in. I never thought I'd be so grateful to see the sun. By the time I reached the next truck stop, my hands were still shaking. I parked, got out, and let the fresh air hit me. My breath was ragged, my heart still hammering against my ribs. Then I saw it. A long, black streak down the side of my cab, like something had dragged its fingers along the metal. I haven't driven the night shift since. I've been driving the night shift for over 20 years. It's quiet, less traffic, and the dark has never really bothered me. But there are some nights like this, where I wish I'd chosen a different life. It started around 2:30 a.m. The highway was empty, stretching out in long black ribbons beneath my rig's headlights. The CB was quiet, just static humming in the background. I had another 6 hours before I could pull over and get some rest, but I was making good time. Then I saw it. A car sat motionless on the side of the road, its hazard lights blinking weakly in the dark. I slowed my rig, debating whether to stop. Something in my gut told me to keep driving, but my conscience won out. Maybe someone needed help. I pulled over, climbed down from my cab, and approached the car cautiously. The night air was thick, heavy with an unnatural stillness. I reached for the driver's side window. Empty. No one in the front seats. The keys dangled in the ignition, but the car was dead silent. A chill ran through me. Something was wrong. I walked around to the back. My breath caught in my throat as I noticed the trunk was slightly ajar. A strange smell, something acrid and sour, seeped into the night air. My hands trembled as I lifted the trunk lid. Black plastic bags, stacked on top of each other, and one of them was moving. A soft rustling sound, like something struggling inside. I took a step back, my heartbeat thundering in my ears. The bag writhed, stretching against the plastic as if something, or someone, was trapped inside. I slammed the trunk shut and bolted for my truck. My legs felt heavy, the darkness pressing in on me. I jumped into my cab, locked the doors, and gunned the engine. The truck roared to life, tires spitting gravel as I sped back onto the highway. In my side mirror, the hazard lights blinked on and off, and for just a second I swore I saw a figure standing beside the car, watching me leave. I didn't stop again until the sun came up. The next night I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had settled deep in my chest. I kept thinking about that car, those bags, the thing inside. Who, or what, had put it there? Was it still struggling? Still alive? Around 3 a.m., I was halfway through my route when my CB crackled to life. "Did you open it?" My stomach dropped. The voice was distorted, hollow. It didn't belong to anyone I knew. "Who is this?" I asked, gripping the mic with clammy fingers. Silence. Then a soft whisper. "You should have let it out." I nearly swerved off the road. My pulse pounded in my ears. The CB was dead silent again, just static humming through the speakers. I checked my mirrors, half expecting to see that damn car behind me, but the road was empty. The CB crackled again. "It's coming." I shut the radio off. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to know. I drove until dawn. When I finally pulled into a truck stop, I barely remembered the last 2 hours of my route. Everything was a blur of darkness, speed, and fear. I climbed out of my cab, legs unsteady, and forced myself to breathe. The early morning sun cast long shadows across the lot. Other truckers moved around, fueling up, stretching their legs, normal, safe. Then I saw the black streaks down the side of my trailer, as if something had dragged its fingers along the metal. I haven't driven the night shift since. I pulled over, climbed down from my cab, and approached the car cautiously. The night air was thick, heavy with an unnatural stillness. I reached for the driver's side window. Empty. No one in the front seats.